now 10 o'clock, so we might get started on the general housekeeping. Thank you everyone for attending, registering and coming to our Did You Know series with our Safe Work New South Wales for Community Workers webinar. I'd like to welcome you all to this legal aid webinar, Wednesday the 9th of October. My name is Teresa Kelly. I'm the Project Manager for the Respect to Work Legal Service at Legal Aid New South Wales. I'm here with Rodney Allen from Safe Work New South Wales, who will be presenting this webinar for us. This series of webinars has been created in response to what the community told us that they needed to know from us when they were visiting regions and speaking to organisations and volunteers who support palm workers and migrant workers across New South Wales. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands from which we are broadcasting today. I'm broadcasting from the land of the Gumbaynggirr people, and we pay our respects to the elders of this land, both past and present, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people attending today's webinar or watching the recording. As a reminder, this presentation is intended for general information only and cannot be relied on as legal advice. The information is accurate at the time of broadcasting, but may have changed if you're watching the recording at a later date. If you need legal help about a particular situation, start with our team by calling Law Access New South Wales via web chat on www.legalaidnewsouthwales.gov or call 1300 888 529. Today's presenter is Rod Allen, and Rod is a State Inspector for for Safe Work New South Wales in the Regional Compliance Interventions Team, and has a long career in public safety, including 20 years in the New South Wales Police Force as a general duties and a drug squad detective senior sergeant, 3 years in the New South Wales Ambulance Service as a risk manager, and 15 years in Safe Work New South Wales. I'll now hand you over to your presenter, Rodney Allen from Safe Work New South Wales.
Thanks, Teresa. Great to be here, everyone, and thank you for that welcome. As Teresa said, I'm an inspector with Safe Work New South Wales, and want to talk to you today and basically give a bit of an overview of what Safe Work New South Wales does, the type of work that we do, what to expect when we come into your workplace, if we speak to you in your workplace, and the type of things that we're focusing on at the moment and the type of work that we're engaged with at the moment as well. Thanks, Teresa. So some of our responsibilities as the state safety regulator include issuing licenses and registration for potentially dangerous work, and that includes things like issuing licenses for operation of forklifts. It might be an elevating work platform in the workplace that requires a registration or a license to be issued to operate that piece of plant in the workplace. And we check from time to time on those workplaces to see that those workers are actually carrying those licenses or have those licenses issued under their name to operate those different types of plant. We also investigate workplace incidents. So if something occurs in the workplace where someone's seriously injured or fatally injured in the workplace, then we conduct our investigations. We are the investigative body that looks into workplace incidents and fatalities. So usually if something occurs in the workplace where someone's seriously injured or killed, then the Safe Work Inspector will come in, or inspectors will come in depending on the size of the workplace, and we'll conduct a full investigation. And depending on our findings, depends on the type of action that we take. We may issue notices, we might issue fines, or we may even take the matter further to court for prosecution of the persons involved with the situation. Where necessary, we also enforce the work health and safety, workers' compensation and explosives laws in New South Wales. So we cover a number of bodies of legislation. All of our legislation is now criminal legislation that's evidence-based. So everything we do in the workplace requires us, similarly to New South Wales Police, to investigate matters in line with an evidence-based approach. But one of the important things that I want to talk about here today, and I'll be speaking about it a number of times, is workers' compensation, your entitlements as a worker to workers' compensation, and your entitlement to work within a safe work environment. Thanks, Teresa. So safe work inspectors. As I touched on earlier, inspectors can come into your workplace to investigate an incident. So an incident doesn't have to necessarily be where someone's been injured or killed in the workplace. A safe work inspector might come into the workplace because of a serious, it could be an explosion or a release of gas or a serious near miss where someone could have been injured. And we'll conduct an investigation to try to ascertain what occurred and what could be done to prevent an incident from occurring in the future. We also act on complaints received by from members of the public. So we get thousands of complaints across the state every day, and inspectors are activated to go and respond to those complaints that we receive in the workplace, and they range from things like working at height. It might be a construction site where an inspector is called to look at a site where workers are working above 2 metres without fall protection. It could be something in relation to a farmer operating an item of plant that requires guarding, and that item of plant doesn't have guarding. An inspector will go out and ensure that that workplace is safe and do whatever's required to rectify any issues on that site. So we respond to a heap of different areas, a heap of different complaints. It's not just those physical type issues that we deal with. We also deal with what's known as psychosocial issues. We deal with bullying in the workplace. So we receive a lot of complaints from workers who have been bullied in the workplace or treated poorly by their leaders or in a lot of situations, their co-workers as well. So we respond to those type of complaints. We respond to workplace sexual harassment and discrimination. And as I said, we receive a lot of complaints in those areas and activate our inspectors to ensure that those workers aren't exposed to those type of issues in the workplace. We also provide a more proactive response in the workplace as well, where businesses can request advice and advisory inspection from an inspector, where an inspector can come to the workplace and provide advice and assistance on how to ensure that the workplace is safe and how to make sure that that business is compliant with all of the safety requirements that are listed within our legislation. So just generally making sure that the workplace is safe, the employer is doing what they ought to be doing in the workplace to make it safe, and that workers aren't exposed to issues where they may suffer injury in the workplace. And we also conduct targeted programs, so targeted prevention programs. And I'll talk a little bit about that throughout this presentation as well. Thanks, Teresa. So one of the things that we look at pretty closely when seasonal workers, which is a program I've just been working on across New South Wales, and any worker for that matter, when you start a job, there are certain things that should be in place, and there's certain things that should be done by the employer to ensure that you are safe and that you understand exactly what's happening in the workplace and that you understand what the general safety requirements are in the workplace. You should be shown how to use any equipment that you'll be operating. So if you're asked to operate a tractor in the workplace, then you should be shown and given full detail or instruction on how to operate that tractor. If you're asked to operate a quad bike in the workplace, a motorcycle in the workplace, and you should be given full instructions of how to operate that motorcycle in the workplace. You should be provided with safety equipment. So say, for example, you are asked to operate a quad bike and you have been trained in the operation of that quad bike, then you should be given the safety equipment. Now, safety equipment is also known as personal protective equipment, or PPE, and that includes things like making sure that you're provided with a helmet, and that helmet should not be a helmet that's supplied to every worker to use. You should be provided with a helmet that is your own helmet to use, because it is personal protective equipment, and every worker should be provided with their own set of PPE. You should be provided, if you are going to use any items of plant in the workplace, the employer should ensure that any plant or any machinery that you use in the workplace is safe and fit for purpose. So it means that if you're operating plant in the workplace, machinery in the workplace, that there's not going to be any issues associated with that machinery that may cause injury to you. The employer should ensure that all guarding is in place, that you're not exposed to any hazards, that you're not exposed to moving parts of that machinery, and that the general operation of that machinery isn't going to cause injury to you. You should be trained, as I said earlier, on how to use equipment safely. So that means not just telling you that an item of machinery needs to be switched on and you go and use it, but you should be given full instruction on how to use that equipment. You should be given full instruction and training on the issues or hazards associated with the use of that equipment, and any controls that are in place to make sure that that equipment doesn't cause harm to you. You should be shown around the workplace and shown things like entry and exit points, emergency procedures, and things like where the first aid kit is located or first aid kits are located, areas where fire extinguishers may be located if there's need for that type of equipment, and where the amenities are. And amenities include things like toilets, hand washing facilities, showers if required, depending on the type of work. And it may be that there's accommodation on within that workplace as well. So an explanation of where all of those areas are or those items are, so you know exactly how to access them if you need to. Thanks, Teresa. So you should also be told about evacuation procedures as well. And all workplaces should have an emergency plan of some sort displayed so that you understand the requirements of an emergency evacuation, and you understand where to go, where the entry and exit points are, and you understand exactly what to do if a situation arises where you need to exit the workplace in a hurry. You should be introduced to your immediate supervisor, and if there's a health and safety representative in the workplace, then you should be told exactly who those people are and how you should report safety hazards within the workplace. So if you do identify, if you are a worker in a workplace and you identify that something is not safe, or you're not happy with something that's occurring in the workplace, then you should be shown and you should be told from when you start in that position exactly who the people are that you should speak with to let them know that something's unsafe or something needs to be fixed, or that Safe Work New South Wales might need to come into the workplace. But you need to know who those people are that you need to talk to. You need to be told about the safety policies and procedures in place. So things like whether the workplace has a bullying and harassment policy in the workplace, which all workplaces should have, a bullying and harassment policy. You should be told if there's a general requirement to act within a code of conduct or to act in a certain way in the workplace. You should be told about any policies or procedures in relation to wearing safety gear, safety clothing, ensuring that you know all those requirements to ensure that you're safe in the workplace and act within a certain way in the workplace to make your job safe. You also should know exactly how to report issues in the workplace or injuries in the workplace. So every workplace must have an injury reporting procedure, and every workplace should ensure that all of their workers know exactly what that injury reporting procedure is. It's not that they should do that, they must do that. All workplaces must ensure that their workers know exactly how to report issues in the workplace and how to report injuries in the workplace. And that workplace, or that employer, must act on that information they receive from you as a worker. You need to be clear about everyone's role in the workplace. So this is important, that you're given clear instructions right from the start, exactly about what everyone's role is, what your role is within the workplace, and who controls certain areas within the workplace, who those health and safety representatives are, as I explained earlier, and exactly the exact role of everyone in the workplace, so you know who does what, and areas of control, so you know your place in the workplace as well. Thanks, Teresa. As a worker in New South Wales, you have the right to appropriate safety equipment. Too often, um, I see workplaces that don't provide their workers with sufficient safety equipment in the workplace, and that could be as simple as a high visibility vest, as you see hanging on the wall in this slide. It could be a hard hat. It could be something like safety goggles to operate certain type of machinery to protect your eyes. It could be something like hearing protection if you're operating machinery over a long period of time, and there's a risk that your hearing may be damaged. Then that employer or that workplace must ensure that you're provided with that with a sufficient level of personal protective equipment to ensure that you don't sustain any injury in the workplace. And that includes, like I said, things like safety glasses, hearing protection. It could be as much as ensuring that you have sun protection or a hat in the workplace to protect you from UV rays if you're working outside over a longer period of time. Just ensuring that you do have access to that type of personal protective equipment. Things like operating a quad bike or operating certain types of machinery that have seatbelts fitted. The employer or the workplace must ensure that machinery, if it is to be fitted with a seatbelt, that the seatbelt actually functions and the equipment is fitted with a seatbelt. So it's important that if you think that you should have certain types of personal protective equipment given to you, or you should have access to that type of equipment, then you need to talk to your employer or your safety representative in the workplace to let them know that you want that equipment supplied to you, and that it's important to ensure your safety. So, as I said, too often these days, I see employers that don't supply a sufficient level of personal protective equipment, or there's an expectation that workers share personal protective equipment, and you're not to share someone else's personal protective equipment. The reason it's called personal protective equipment is because it's personal to you, and you should be afforded access to your own personal protective equipment. Thanks, Teresa. You have the right to speak up. This is really important. If Safe Work New South Wales comes into your workplace, you're not going to be punished for speaking to us. My job and the job of my colleagues is to ensure that no worker is injured in the workplace and that everyone in the workplace goes home alive and well at the end of the day. So our job is to ensure that you're happy in the workplace and you're safe in the workplace and you go home the same way that you started the day. If you're not sure how to do something safely, ask your supervisor for help, or if you require additional training, ask for additional training. And remember that when we talk about work health and safety, it's not just that physical stuff that we talk about. It's also the psychological issues that we talk about. So if you think that you're being exposed to a psychological hazard in the workplace, or you see someone else that's being exposed to a psychological hazard in the workplace, and that could mean that they're being treated poorly, or it could mean that they're subjected to some sort of bullying type behavior in the workplace, then you need to speak up. You have a right to speak up. You have a right to notify the workplace, and you have a right as a worker to notify Safe Work New South Wales if you think that something's not right. If you're concerned about a health and safety issue, then you need to talk to your supervisor or your health and safety representative. Once again, too often I see issues in the workplace that have been ignored, and workers have not spoken up about those issues, and someone ends up being injured as a result of that, because those issues aren't fixed or aren't rectified, because people simply don't know about the issue. And workers need to, as a worker, you need to let people know if something's not right, whether it be physical or psychological, then you need to alert someone about that. If you feel that you can't, or your boss won't listen to what you're saying, or your supervisor or your team leader doesn't want to listen to you, then you have a right to tell us. You can contact us on Safe Work New South Wales on 13 10 50. And when you do, you can request a translator to help you with communication. But I have to say, you have a right to speak up. You have a right to notify of safety issues in the workplace, and you will not be punished if you notify safety issues in the workplace. It is actually illegal for an employer to take action against you for nominating or notifying Safe Work New South Wales of any safety issues. They cannot dismiss you or sack you from your job if you notify Safe Work New South Wales. As I said, is it illegal to do that? And they cannot stop you from notifying Safe Work New South Wales or from notifying the workplace about any safety issues in the workplace. It is your responsibility and one of your obligations under the Work Health and Safety Act as a worker to do that. So the expectation is from us and from your workplace, or it should be from your workplace, that you nominate these issues and you speak up and let people know that something's not safe. Thanks, Teresa. So once again, if you see something that's occurring in the workplace that you think is not safe, or you think that you may be injured if you perform a certain duty in the workplace, if you think that you're not supplied with the correct personal protective equipment, or you think that an item of machinery is not safe, then you have the right to say no to unsafe work. You do not have to perform unsafe work at all. If you're asked to do something that you think is unsafe, stop the work and talk to your supervisor or your health and safety representative. Say that, tell them that you are not satisfied that everything is as it should be in the workplace. Tell them that you need, additional safety assistance in the workplace. You need additional PPE in the workplace, or that you need something rectified in the workplace to make it safe. It may be something as simple as working outside for a long period of time through the day. Tell your workplace that you don't want to do that. Tell your supervisor that you don't want to do that unless you're given access to skin protection, sun protection. Tell your supervisor that you don't want to continue to work because you're thirsty, and you should be given the opportunity to access water in the workplace. So it's important that if you're doing something that you're not comfortable with, or you think that there's something that's going to cause injury to you, then you have to say no to unsafe work. You do not do something that's unsafe, because the chances are you could be seriously injured and you won't be able to work again. So once again, too often I see people that perform unsafe tasks in the workplace, and they're too afraid to notify or to talk to someone about that issue, or to say no to that type of work. And as a result, they suffer an injury. Thanks, Teresa. So you have the right to be consulted as well. Consultation basically means that people talking to each other about workplace safety, talking to you about how to do your job safely, and what could cause harm in the workplace. So those issues that might cause injury to you in the workplace, your employer must, once again, consultation isn't something that people should do, it's something that they must do. They don't have a choice about it. Consultation must occur in the workplace with all workers, and it must be a consistent approach to safety in the workplace as far as consultation is concerned. So they must, if something changes in the workplace, if a procedure changes in the workplace, or the way you're expected to do something, then consultation must take place. Your employer or your supervisor or whoever controls that area of work must talk to you about safety and how to do your job safely. The workplace must undertake risk management activities. That means that they must identify where the hazards are occurring or where hazards exist, and they must put what we call controls in place to ensure that that hazard doesn't cause harm to you. Or they must eliminate the hazard if they can. But if they can't eliminate the hazard from the workplace, then they must put controls in place to make sure that that hazard doesn't cause harm or that issue doesn't cause harm. And they must consult with you about those controls in the workplace. If there are any changes that might affect the work health and safety of workers in the workplace, then the employer or the supervisor or whoever controls that workplace must talk to you about those changes. Any decisions that are about work health and safety procedures in the workplace, then the employer must talk to you and all other workers about those procedures or those decisions that are going to change in the workplace. And they must also talk to you about must consult about the adequacy of facilities in the workplace for the welfare of workers. So once again, it's not just about, like I said in the previous slides, it's not just about the employer talking to you about safety, but it's about you talking as a worker, talking to your employer or your supervisor or whoever controls that area of work that you're in about things that are occurring in the workplace. About if there's an issue with a toilet in the workplace, then talking to your worker, talking to your employer about those issues that are occurring, talking to your employer about the fact that the toilet's not working properly, or that a tap isn't working where you might be able to get some water to drink. Talking to them about shower facilities, if there are shower facilities that aren't working correctly. If you have male and female workers in the workplace, then you shouldn't be sharing the same toilet. Female workers and male workers should be given separate toilets in the workplace. Now, if that's not occurring, then you have a right to speak to your employer about those issues and to raise those issues with the employer. The employer then must ensure that those facilities or those amenities are in accordance with New South Wales work health and safety legislation or safety standards. So it's important that this consultation, talking to each other, takes place at all levels, not just from the employer or the boss down, but it also should occur. Consultation should occur from you as a worker up, talking to everyone about safety, talking to your colleagues about safety. If you know that something could cause harm, then it's important that you consult with your fellow workers about those safety issues. Thanks, Teresa. You have a right to workers' compensation. So every worker in New South Wales has a right to a sufficient level or an adequate level of workers' compensation. So that means that if you're injured in work, that workplace or that employer has a workers' compensation policy in place to ensure that any of your medical expenses, any time off work is covered through a workers' compensation policy. So if you do require treatment at a hospital or some sort of treatment from a doctor, then you don't have to pay for that treatment, that the workers' compensation policy pays for that, that treatment. If you, as a result of an injury in the workplace, are out of work for a period of time, then that workers' compensation policy should cover you as a worker for any loss of income. So you should not be out of pocket for any injury that occurs in the workplace. Okay, so every workplace in New South Wales must have a workers' compensation policy to ensure that all workers are covered. Okay, it's also important to ensure that if you do suffer an injury in the workplace, and once again, I still see this occurring, where workers are not given access to workers' compensation, or they don't know that they should be entitled to workers' compensation, and they don't notify of an injury, or they're afraid to notify that an injury has occurred, and try to administer their own first aid or their own care, and as a result, the injury gets worse and that worker can no longer work. It's important that as soon as you're injured, you notify your employer about that injury. You cannot be punished for notifying an injury in the workplace. Once again, it's illegal if you've notified the employer of an injury in the workplace, it is illegal for that employer not to act and supply or to give you access to medical assistance and workers' compensation. So if you're hurt in the workplace, don't be afraid that you'll get into trouble. You will not get into trouble. Safe Work New South Wales will ensure that you do not get into trouble. If you do get into trouble from your workplace, then you need to notify us of exactly what's occurred, and we will assist you and ensure that you're given every entitlement that you should have as far as workers' compensation and access to medical care. Even if you think you've made a mistake, you should report the injury and ask for help. So if you've done something that you think you've made a mistake in the workplace, that you shouldn't have done something, and you suffer an injury as a result, you are still entitled to workers' compensation. You are still entitled to access to medical care or to a doctor, okay? And you are still entitled to be covered for any loss of income. Thanks, Teresa. You have the right not to be bullied at work, okay? You have the right to a fair and just workplace. We all have the right to a fair and just workplace. I'm a worker for Safe Work New South Wales. I have a right to ensure that I'm not bullied in the workplace, to ensure that I have a right to a workplace where I'm not subjected to unreasonable behaviour, where I'm not subjected to discrimination in the workplace, where I'm not subjected to violence and aggression in the workplace. We all, as workers, have a right to a safe workplace where we're not subjected to that type of behaviour. If, however, you think you are being bullied, then you should talk to your supervisor, your health and safety representative, or another impartial person that you trust, and that could be a colleague, and make sure that those people are someone that you trust and can raise that issue with the employer. If it doesn't work, then you need to contact Safe Work New South Wales to make a complaint so that we can then intervene and fix the problem for you. Thanks, Teresa. You have a right to fair pay and conditions. So in Australia, there's a thing called minimum wages and working conditions. You have a right to certain working conditions, as I said, explained earlier, but you also have a right to ensure the workplace must ensure that you're given access to whatever the minimum wage requirement is. If you require additional information about rates of pay and other work requirements, then you can contact the Fair Work Ombudsman on 13 13 94. And once again, you can request a translator on 13 14 50 if you require a translator for that contact. Thanks, Teresa. So as a worker, you also have responsibilities at work. I touched on this earlier. It's not just the employer's role, but it's also your role to ensure that you're safe at work. As a worker, you are required to take reasonable care of yourself. You're required to act in a way in the workplace that doesn't cause harm to yourself or to others in the workplace. And that means that if you see something occurring in the workplace that is unsafe, or you see something that needs to be fixed in the workplace that might become unsafe, then you have a responsibility or an obligation to notify or to tell someone about that unsafe work practice. You must, as a worker, follow any reasonable health and safety instructions from your employer. That means if your employer tells you you must wear a hat in the workplace because it's going to protect you from provide some sun protection for you, then you must wear a hat. If you're told that you have to wear a certain coloured high visibility shirt or vest, then you must do that in the workplace because it's classed as a reasonable direction from your employer. If you're told that you have to wear a hard hat, and it might become a bit hot in the workplace, but the hard hat's going to provide protection for you, then you must wear a hard hat in the workplace. If you're told that you have to wear certain types of gloves in the workplace to protect your hands, then you must do that. Okay, if it's a reasonable direction from your employer and it's going to provide an additional layer of safety for you, then you need to comply. You must comply. If you're not sure how to safely perform the work, then you need to ask someone. You must, as a worker, if you're not sure how to do the work or not sure how to do a certain workplace task, then it's an obligation, your obligation to say, I don't know how to do this. I need some instruction. Can you show me what I need to do? You need to follow those instructions and work safely, as I said earlier, to ensure that there's no harm to you or to other workers in the workplace or others in the workplace. And you need to report unsafe and unhealthy situations. Any injuries that occur, if you know that one of your colleagues has been injured also, then you need to notify someone that your colleague has been injured and may need some medical assistance. Thanks, Teresa. Your employer has responsibilities. Now, I've been talking about these responsibilities throughout this presentation, but there are specific responsibilities that your employer must provide. As I said, it's not about should. This is a must for every workplace in New South Wales. Your employer must provide a safe and healthy workplace. And like I said earlier, both physical and psychological. So any type of work that you're doing, your employer should ensure that you don't suffer a back injury because you have to lift something. They should ensure that you don't fall from a height when you're working. They must ensure that you have sufficient protection in place to prevent any injuries from occurring. They must ensure that bullying and harassment or discrimination does not occur in the workplace. They must ensure that all equipment, structures and systems of work are safe and without hazard, or they have sufficient controls in place to ensure that you are not injured when you're using that equipment. The employer must ensure that adequate workplace amenities and facilities are in place. So if you're working in a field or a paddock outside, then you must have reasonable access to what we call potable water, which means water that is safe to drink, and also reasonable access to toilet facilities. And like I said earlier, that means if there are male and female workers, that male and female workers are given male toilets and female toilets, that you're not sharing the same toilets, that people have a right to use the toilet of whatever sex are, and that the employer has that in place, that you have access to those adequate facilities. The employer must ensure that induction and ongoing access to information training and supervision is in place. So they must, like I said, talk to you about safety, provide a workplace induction to you, talk to you about the emergency and evacuation procedures, talk to you about injury reporting and how to report an injury in that workplace, talk to you about how to operate certain types of equipment or certain machinery in the workplace. Talk to you about who your supervisors are and who those people are that you can report hazards to. And they must provide you with an opportunity to talk about work health and safety. So as a worker, the employer or your boss must allow you the opportunity. They must allow you to talk about work health and safety. Okay, next one. Thanks, Teresa. So like I said, our job, my job, Safe Work New South Wales, our job is to eliminate workplace injury and eliminate workplace fatalities from occurring. That's our one and only job, and we want to be able to help you. We don't want you to be afraid to contact us. So we have an app that you can download to your telephone. It's completely free to download. It's called the Speak Up app. You can actually download the app in a number of different languages, or use your own translation app if you require. And you can, if there is something occurring in the workplace that's unsafe, then you can nominate through the app, and you can contact Safe Work New South Wales and talk to us exactly about what's occurring. And you can do it completely anonymously. So when you use that app, you can say exactly what's occurring or exactly what you feel unsafe about, and you can do it without nominating your name or identifying who you are. So you're completely protected. If, however, you want to identify who you are, then you can also do that. Next one. Thanks, Teresa. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening to me today. And please, at any time that you wish to talk to Safe Work New South Wales, and by all means, we have inspectors available through offices throughout New South Wales. And we're all available to give you advice over the phone if you require it.
Thank you, Rod. I've just gone back to the last page so everyone has a chance to look up the app on their phone and make sure that they get the right one. Thanks for sharing all that information. I think it's really important that all of us know that Safe Work, all the work that Safe Work does when it comes to prevention and advice to organisations to prevent injuries, not just the go-to when things are wrong. Like, I know that's a really important part of your work for you guys. So I'd like to just again thank everyone for participating in today's webinar, and just remind you that you'll receive an evaluation survey, and we would really appreciate your feedback. You'll also receive an email with the answers from the Q&A section today, and information about the resources that we talked about in the webinar. The recording of our first webinar on immigration law is now available on our YouTube channel, and this one will be uploaded soon for anyone who missed today's session. Next week's session is employment law, and then after that we have workplace sexual harassment and discrimination in the workplace, as well as local legal aid officers and the Work Directions Audit Team, and then we have the Australian Human Rights Commission. So if you need legal help about a particular situation, start with Law Access New South Wales, or have a look at our website at www.legalaid.newsouthwales.gov.au. Give us a call on 1300 888 529, and you can contact Safe Work on 131050 or use the Speak Up app. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone.